The rain had been falling since early morning, tapping softly on the rusted tin roof of the small house at the edge of the town. Inside, a young woman sat by the narrow window, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Her name was Ira, and though the world outside seemed calm and ordinary, inside her heart lived storms that few people could imagine. Pain had followed her for years like a shadow that refused to disappear. Yet deep within that shadow, something powerful was quietly waiting to awaken. Ira had grown up in a place where dreams were often treated like fragile glass. Her father worked long hours at a small repair shop, and her mother stitched clothes late into the night just to keep food on the table. Life was not easy, but there had once been warmth in their tiny home. When Ira was little, she believed the world was kind. She believed that if you worked hard and stayed honest, happiness would eventually find you. But life has a strange way of testing belief. When Ira turned 13, everything changed. Her father's health began to fail, and the repair shop that once kept their family afloat slowly lost customers. Bills piled up like mountains, and the house that once echoed with laughter grew heavy with silence. Ira watched her parents worry every day, their eyes carrying the weight of problems they could not solve. School became her only escape. There, she buried herself in books and dreams of a future that felt brighter than the present. She imagined becoming someone strong, someone capable of lifting her family out of hardship. But dreams, as she soon discovered, do not grow easily in the soil of struggle. By the time she was 16, Ira had learned what it meant to sacrifice. She worked after school at a small grocery store, stacking shelves and sweeping floors while other teenagers spent their evenings laughing with friends. She never complained. She believed that enduring hardship quietly was a form of strength. Yet pain rarely stays quiet forever. One evening, after returning home from work, she found her mother sitting on the floor beside a pile of unpaid bills. Her shoulders were trembling, and tears rolled silently down her face. It was the first time Ira had ever seen her mother cry like that. Something inside her chest tightened. She realized in that moment that childhood had ended. From that day forward, she felt responsible not only for her own life, but for the fragile hope of her family. Years passed, and the weight on her shoulders only grew heavier. Her father passed away when she was 19, leaving behind a silence that felt impossible to fill. The world did not pause for her grief. The rent still had to be paid, food still had to be bought, and life demanded strength even when her heart was breaking. She took on more work, sometimes 2 jobs at once, sleeping only a few hours each night. People who saw her walking through the streets thought she was just another quiet girl going about her routine. They did not see the exhaustion behind her smile, the way her hands trembled when she thought no one was looking. Pain became her constant companion. But pain also became her teacher. There were nights when Ira sat alone in the darkness, asking herself why life had chosen such a difficult path for her. She felt anger, sadness, and sometimes a deep loneliness that seemed endless. Yet every time she thought about giving up, she remembered her mother's tired face and the promise she had silently made to herself: she would not let their story end in struggle. One day, while working at a local cafe, Ira overheard a conversation between 2 women discussing a community scholarship program. It was meant for students who had faced significant hardship but still wanted to continue their education. At first, the idea felt impossible. She had been out of school for years, and the thought of returning felt like chasing a dream that had already faded. Still, something inside her refused to stay quiet. That night, she sat at the small wooden table in her home and filled out the application form. Her hands shook as she wrote about her life, her struggles, and the dreams she had buried beneath years of responsibility. When she finished, she stared at the paper for a long time before finally folding it and placing it in an envelope. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. Weeks passed with no response. Ira tried not to think about it, convincing herself that nothing would come of it. She focused on work, on paying bills, on surviving another day. But one afternoon, as she returned home, she noticed an official-looking letter resting in the mailbox. Her heart pounded as she opened it. The words inside changed everything. She had been accepted. The scholarship covered tuition and provided a small monthly stipend. It was not a miracle that solved all her problems, but it was a door opening in a wall she thought would never move. Returning to school was not easy. Ira often felt older than the other students, and the years away from studying made everything harder. There were moments when self-doubt crept into her mind, whispering that she did not belong there. But she had endured worse than difficult textbooks. Every challenge became another step forward. Her professors quickly noticed her determination. While other students sometimes gave up when assignments became difficult, Ira pushed harder. She had learned through life that progress often hides behind persistence. Slowly, the girl who once sat quietly at the back of the classroom began to stand taller. She discovered a passion for social work, a field dedicated to helping people who felt lost in the same darkness she had once faced. The more she studied, the more she realized that her pain had given her something powerful: empathy. She understood struggle in a way textbooks could never teach. Years later, when Ira finally graduated, her mother sat in the audience with tears shining in her eyes. The stage lights felt warm as Ira accepted her certificate, but what filled her heart was something far greater than pride. It was transformation. The pain she had carried for so long had not destroyed her. Instead, it had shaped her into someone stronger, someone capable of rising beyond circumstances that once seemed impossible to escape. Life did not suddenly become perfect after that day. Challenges still appeared, unexpected and sometimes overwhelming. But Ira no longer saw pain as an enemy. She understood that within every hardship lived a hidden strength waiting to be discovered. She began working with organizations that supported struggling families, young girls facing poverty, and individuals who believed their dreams had died. Whenever she spoke to them, she shared not just advice but pieces of her own story. She told them that pain is real. But so is the power to rise. People often looked at her and saw confidence, resilience, and compassion. Few realized how many nights of doubt, tears, and silent battles had built that strength. The truth was simple: rising does not mean never falling. Rising means refusing to stay down. One evening, years after that rainy morning by the window, Ira stood on a stage speaking to a room filled with young people searching for hope. The lights were bright, and the audience sat quietly, listening to every word. She paused for a moment and looked around. "I know what it feels like," she said softly. "To believe life has given you more pain than you can carry. To feel invisible. To think your story will never change." The room remained silent. "But pain," she continued, "is not the end of your story. It is only a chapter. And sometimes, the darkest chapters lead to the most powerful endings." Ira smiled gently. "Your pain is real, but so is your power to rise." In that moment, the girl who once felt broken realized something extraordinary. The struggles that once made her feel weak had become the very foundation of her strength. Her story was not defined by suffering. It was defined by courage. And though the world still held challenges and uncertainty, one truth remained unshakable: no matter how deep the pain, the human spirit carries a remarkable ability to rise again.